All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to unpack a really powerful way of looking at the world, a mental model that helps make sense of pretty much everything, from a bike race all the way up to the global economy. We're going to see our world through the lens of a complex adaptive system.
And to really get our heads around this big idea, we're going to stick with one central metaphor for this whole explainer, this cycling peloton. Honestly, it's the perfect real-world example of what we're talking about.
I mean, just look at it. It moves like this single, fluid creature, kind of like a snake winding its way through the mountains. But it's actually made up of hundreds of individual riders, rival teams, all with their own personal goals. It looks like it's coordinated, but there's no one calling the shots. It's chaos in motion, and yet somehow this beautiful order just emerges from it. And yeah, that brings us to the big question, right? How in the world does that happen? What are the underlying rules that let a bunch of competitors act like a single, cohesive, almost intelligent organism? Well, the answer is all about understanding what complexity really is. So to get there, we've got to be super clear on what we mean by the word complex. It's a word we throw around all the time, but in this context, it has a very, very specific meaning. First things first, complex is not the same thing as difficult. Solving a really hard math equation is difficult, but the rules are fixed. Complexity, that's an actual property of a system. It's about all the different parts and how they interact in unpredictable ways. Difficulty is just, how hard something feels to you. And it's also different from what we usually call systems thinking. That's often a top-down thing, like you're trying to draw a master blueprint for everything. Complexity science is the opposite. It's bottom-up. It's all about watching how simple, individual actions can create these wild, unpredictable results for the whole group. The Nobel laureate Ilya Prigozhin put it so well. He said that in complex systems, you can't unscramble an egg. The process only goes one way, and the outcomes, they're all about probability, not certainty. The past shapes the future, but you can never perfectly predict it. And this is absolutely crucial. There is no central control. No single rider is the boss of the peloton. Instead, the whole system adapts. It learns, and it evolves over time, based on what's happening around it. And here's the part that makes it all click. Each individual cyclist has no idea what the system as a whole is doing. They're only reacting to what's right in front of them, the rider they're drafting, the wind in their face. It's all local information. And from all those tiny local actions, the big picture, global behavior just appears. Okay, this is my absolute favorite analogy for this. A jet engine is complicated. It has tons of parts, but you can take it apart, and if you're smart enough, you can put it all back together again. But mayonnaise is complex. You take a few simple ingredients, oil, egg yolk, vinegar, and they interact to create something totally new. You can't predict its exact texture, and you sure can't turn it back into oil and eggs. That's the difference. Now, you might be thinking, what about a flock of starlings? Those incredible murmurations. They look complex, right? But here's the thing. They operate on a few really simple, universal rules. Every single bird is basically following the same 4 instructions, and that's what creates those amazing patterns. But a human system, that is a whole other level of complex. We humans, we add culture, long-term strategies, team loyalties, personal rivalries. We add emotion. A single flat tire at the wrong moment can change the outcome of the entire race. Our rules are messy, they're always changing, and they are definitely not universal. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of it all. We're not just talking about a complex system, but a complex adaptive system. And that word, adaptive, that's the key to everything. So, what is a CAS? Well, it's a system that's constantly learning, constantly evolving in response to its environment. It's not some static machine, it's a dynamic process. It's defined by that constant dance of interactions between all its parts and the world around it. And a CAS has some key properties. You've got emergence. That's the behavior of the whole peloton that you can't find in any single rider. You've got pass dependence. History really matters. An early crash completely changes the rest of the race. We've talked about decentralized control. No one's in charge. And finally, these systems live and thrive at the edge of chaos. It's that perfect sweet spot, right between rigid, boring order and total useless randomness. It's where creativity and adaptation happen. So now, let's zoom in on what makes human systems, our systems, so incredibly unique.
This is where we get into this idea of anthrocomplexity.
You see, unlike starlings or ants, we humans run on stories. We operate on narrative, culture, and conscious goals. We are storytelling animals. The myths we believe, the values we share, the goals we work towards, these things fundamentally change how our systems behave. We don't just react to the world, we create meaning, and then we act on that meaning. And this isn't new. Our self-perception has evolved over time. We went from seeing ourselves as rational animals in ancient Greece to viewing society as a giant machine during the Enlightenment. But these weren't just descriptions. These metaphors actively shaped our societies. The stories we tell ourselves literally become the rules of the system. So, this leads to the big practical question. If you can't command and control a complex system, how do you influence it? What do you do? How do you steer it in a better direction? Well, here's the trick. You can't steer it like a car. You have to treat it more like a garden. You don't command, you cultivate. You start by investigating, by understanding the soil, the history, the people, their beliefs. Then you set a general direction, not a fixed destination. You plant one small seed, make one small change, and then you watch. You pay close attention to how the system responds. You learn from that feedback, and only then do you take your next small step. It's this constant cycle of probing, sensing, and responding. So I'll leave you with this. Once you realize you're living and working inside countless complex adaptive systems, it kind of changes how you see things. It replaces that illusion of having total control with a much more powerful strategy of influence and adaptation. So think about it. What complex system in your own life, your team, your community, maybe even your career, will you start to navigate differently now?